Hello, everybody. Good morning if you're on my coast. Good afternoon if you're on the East. Good evening if you're elsewhere. Um, Today we're going to do fear and the amygdala. And if you don't know what the amygdala is, by the end of this class, you'll know a little bit more about it. So I thought I'd start today just by reading the description for this class. So here we go. Fear can be a crippling state, especially if I remain unaware of my triggers and continue to push down and away the very feelings that surge within me when fear takes hold. I have found that understanding the physiology of emotions to be a powerful way into knowing myself and healing the parts of me that may linger in the very states that hold me back. Fear, guilt, shame, jealousy, and anger are but a few emotions that I regularly sit with. I say sit with, not look at, because these emotions have become like friends. I listen to them, honor and acknowledge them, and utilize practices that help me to better understand when and why I am activated and feeling fearful. In this class today, we're going to look at what fear is, how it manifests emotionally and physiologically. We will evaluate, someone's coming in, admit, hello, hello. We will evaluate the behaviors that may accompany fear and recognize when they are present, however subtle. Knowledge will be key if we wish to interrupt this fear pattern, right? So we really need to look at ourselves, know and evaluate our behaviors. We will understand the areas of the brain, particularly the amygdala, that play a major role in fear activation. And finally, we'll learn some self-care slash client care tools to help nurture and calm our fears. So, and welcome, who came on? Hello, hello. You're all muted, but soon we're going to be unmuting because I like to make this it's a class, but it's a conversation too. So I'd like to start just by saying this class is so big. um, this topic is so rich that we're going to just touch on it today. It's going to be a taste today. There are so many facets. So I'm going to be doing a longer class soon-ish. So just keep your eyes peeled. I'll keep you posted. But today is a taste. So I like to begin all my classes with knowing where you are. We have people in class today. We have people that are going to be watching later. So if you're watching later, I encourage you to think about this question as if you are here and say it aloud. So for those of us here today, what is fear to you? What do you think? What comes to mind when you hear that word? What sensations might you experience if you're feeling fear? Or what happens to your mind or your body when you're in that state? And you can just speak out. This is being recorded. We'll put it on YouTube. So it's in speaker mode now, but your face will be there. If you don't want your face seen, just go ahead and turn it off. Or if you don't want to be seen at all, put it in the chat and I'll read it. What comes to mind when you hear the word fear?
Not having control.
I'm going to write these down. Good. Not having control. What else?
Freeze.
Breathe. Not having control. Freeze. What else?
Anxiety.
Great. That's right. What I love about this is there are no wrong answers because that's how we experience fear. Right? Yeah. Anxiety, stress. What else? Think about it for a moment. Like, try to remember the last time you were scared of something or fearful. What did you experience? What sensation? Where was it in your body?
Well, one of the things I remember many years ago was how uh, when I discovered a something that made me fearful, I guess, was I felt the blood drain from my system. It just like I think it was the adrenaline that kicked in, and then it felt in my body like I was probably totally sheet white. I
Yeah.
mean, it just felt drained.
Beautiful. You felt the blood drain. Did you get
Yep.
you? Did you feel cold?
Oh, I don't remember. It was too long ago, but I do. I just felt the blood drain, that initial adrenaline rush, I guess, and then um, uh, I don't know beyond that, I guess.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you felt I was probably white. There was an adrenaline rush. You just felt like the blood had drained. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
I just remember feeling such panic that it goes back to freezing, but like with Claire said, it tags onto the fight or flight, your adrenaline, your cortisol, and just this panicky feeling.
Mm. So good. Yes. Hmm. What else? What comes to mind when you hear the word fear, when you experience it? Maybe you've seen it in somebody else. What did you notice in them? And again, you can write it in the chat if you
Well, I
don't.
know for me, when I experience fear, it's just a shutdown of my brain.
Mm.
And I feel like it kind of makes you turn your back on what matters most because you can't think straight or help those who are asking help from you in that moment because just the fear takes over and you're like, I'm sorry, I got nothing.
Wonderful. So it's almost, are you saying too, and this resonates for me, are you also saying that it's almost like you lose your thoughts or you lose like an ability to, yeah, communicate,
Right. Yeah.
access stuff to make it so you can write?
Yeah.
I really relate to that. Yep.
I know that I've responded with complete instant nausea.
Hmm.
In
Yeah.
the last really fearful situation I was in, which was months, I would get so nauseous.
Yeah. Really good. And someone just wrote in the chat, dissociate, right? This idea of coming outside of ourselves. Right. The inability for myself to be present. I talked about it in another class we did that sometimes when I'm fearful, it was a class on anxiety and panic, I think. And I said, sometimes I actually feel myself as if I'm outside myself. And it's such a minor dissociation, but it's so present. And like Brandy was saying, I completely lose access. I have no knowledge, anything I've ever learned before. It happens to me in testing. I was just talking to a student yesterday and we were talking about testing because she's going to ultimately be taking the ARCB. For those of you who are reflexologists, you know, this is our national board, our testing board. And she goes, I'm scared because I'm not good at testing. I go, me too. I barely pass that test. Like I barely pass any test because the minute I'm in that room, my adrenaline starts going. I get totally nervous. It doesn't matter how much I've been studying. I completely have no idea what those words are. They start to jumble in front of me. Someone moves a pencil. All I could focus on is the pencil. The pencil. I'm so mad right now. Like it's just this cascading, all from fear. Anything else that comes to mind, or do you feel complete? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Well, that's the whole F, which is fight, flight. You wanted to run away. That pencil was drawing your attention. But fight, flight, fear, and then I don't know how many others have heard this, but there's a fourth F, which is fight, flight, fight, flight. Now I forgot the third one.
You know what? I'll share a slide later that has a lot of F's. I wasn't going to share it today, but I'll share it today. And then yeah, there's,
Fight, flight,
yeah.
freeze, and fold. The last one is fold. And, when we see people, including ourselves, which we have folded because of anxiety, whatever, we fold, we bend forward.
Yeah.
And that's because we have nothing to give. We have nothing other
Ah,
than the fear or anxiety or such. So, yes.
So intense. So, and we all get this, right? It's not like anyone's sitting in this class right now going, I just don't understand, right? We totally understand all of these states. And yeah, that idea of, you know, I'll bring up the slide in a little bit. They're called there's some survival mechanisms that we refer to as mobile states, right? We want to be able to move, and those are like fight, flight, and like expression, right? Something where we're actually utilizing our body and it's moving us through time and space. That's important. If we don't do that, the freezing, the folding, the flopping, and like I said, I'll bring it up in a little bit. Those are immobile states and ultimately trap emotions in our body. But yeah, I'll bring that up in a little bit. And Heather, yeah, you just wrote fawn. Fawning is great. Fawning, flirting, friending. We do a lot of F's and we think they're saving our lives. And they did at some point, right? When we were a kid, if we fawned over our mom or if we befriended somebody or flirted with somebody, we got attention. We felt love. That's survival. We need love, right? But if we keep on doing it again and again, we're putting ourselves in some pretty messy situations. Somebody else writes, depends. Somebody else writes, depends what it is, but sometimes a feeling of dread or maybe palpitations, sweating, heart pumping. Totally. Yeah, we experience it in our bodies, sweating, heart pumping, and palpitations. Perfect. All right. Do we feel complete? Shall we move on? Yeah. Really, really good. Okay. So I wrote down all of them because I love, where we are today, right? Not having control, the survival mechanisms, right? The freezing, the fighting, the flighting, the anxiety and the stress, feeling the blood drain from our body, the adrenaline rush, maybe even turning pale, the panic, the shutdown, turning back on what matters, the sweating, the palpitations, the heart pumping, the dissociation. Yeah. So fear to me is a state of being that is triggered by an internal or external stimuli. Originally, it was external stimuli. When I was the littlest of persons, right? It was an external stimuli, something outside myself, that when it was processed internally via my central nervous system, my spinal cord, and my brain, and when that part of my brain, it's the thalamus that receives that information and shoots it out for processing into the various parts of my brain to figure out what's up before it sends a response. That fear, if it was first external, which it was, it's almost like it lays a pattern. And when we talk about the amygdala and the hippocampus, this will play an important role because there are parts of our brain, namely the amygdala and especially the hippocampus, that are holding on to those things. Something very fearful happened. And there's another class I teach where I use this example all the time. It's like I'm in Spain and it's misty and I am walking on an alley and a guy comes up to me and he has a mustache and a certain kind of hat. The temperature is a certain temperature and he steals my purse and he runs away and I'm terrified and he had a gun. All of those, it's just data. The gun, the mustache, the rain, the temperature, all of that. I think of it like storing stars, like stars in the night that are stored in my brain. The mustache, the temperature, the purse, the alley. So that is a memory that is stored for later retrieval to save my life, right? We're wired for survival. So later in life, I might be on a certain street that looks like that alley, or there's a guy I meet that has a certain type of mustache, and instantly my heart starts to race, or I get a little sweaty, or I feel a rush, or I feel kind of sick, nauseous, etc. Right? I might not even know that it's related to that memory, but those stars are lighting up, right? They were stored there for later retrieval. Now's the moment because I see something that's saying you might be in danger, right? So it can be external and it certainly becomes internal. And if we're not careful, it's not like we know there's a lot we can do about it in the early stages. It can come up and continue to repeat in our lives without us knowing. So knowing ourselves and being able to look at it cleanly and clearly and share about it is an integral part of a healing process. And and also to acknowledge that we're all very unique individuals. Like I might be scared of the dark and Claire's not, right? Someone might be scared of spiders. Other people are like, it's okay. And they pick it up with their hand and they're like, you're cute. And they blow it outside, right? So, some people are afraid of certain places. And it's all valid. It's and real for the person experiencing it. So fear is important because we are hardwired to survive. So anything that threatens our survival will luckily alert us so we can take action so we don't die or get hurt. And also fear is very important for survival, yes, but it also can be like a really great motivator, right? The idea of I play pool. I'm a pool player, and there's someone on one of the teams I play with that really likes it, that whoever shoots worse can't play the next week. And it's like it gets his adrenaline pumping. It makes him want to play harder. I'm the opposite. I'm like, don't put that pressure on me. I'm now you're not supportive, right? I'm a totally different bird than he is, right? But that motivates him. That fear that he won't be able to play next week motivates him. There's also this idea of maybe someone has a near-death experience and they sense or tap into the reality that they haven't been fully living their lives, right? So that awareness motivates them. That acknowledgement and fear of death motivates them to live more fully in the present. I wanted to open it up with a question, and I'll share a story about it too. I wanted to know, has anyone had an experience of feeling fear that has led to something positive or that has allowed the body to become maybe really strong and to take action? And I'll share one too to get us started if nothing comes to mind. All right, I'm going to kick us off. Once upon a time, I drove a cab, and it was in San Francisco. And I was really tough back in the day. I wore a leather jacket. I had lots of black eyeliner. I smoked incessantly. I was tough. I was a tough girl. I drove a cab, and I had these two guys get in my cab, and they were bad guys. They were really bad guys, and I knew it the minute they got in my cab. But I was tough, so it was okay because I could handle anything. And they said, so we're going to go to this street. And I'm from San Francisco, so I knew it was an alley. They didn't give me an address. That's a sign. When they don't give you an address and they give you an alley, you kind of know you're going not to a good place. And so I did the things I learned in cab school. This is a long time ago. And so you take off your seatbelt. You make sure your car door is unlocked. You do these little things, right? And then for whatever reason, you continue on. And anyway, we got to the alley, and I go, "You're here. That's 450 or whatever, it was back then." And the guy in the back, the cabs back in the day didn't have the glass or the, plastic or whatever. So the guy in the back, one of them was able to get a knife at my neck and hold my side, while the other guy got in the front and put a knife to my thigh. And I was fearful. This is an example of my fear. I was fearful. I was there. My adrenaline started to pump. I was very nervous. I was scared. What ended up happening as time slowed is I went for dispatch. If that's just that thing that people grab, right, to talk into that says, "Hey, I'm cab number 317. I'm on the corner of," it's how you talk to the people at the yard. Now, the guy in the back, the minute I grabbed that, he got scared and he lost the ability to hold that knife anymore, and it dropped, right? Because he got scared. It dropped. He didn't know. There's nothing I could say fast enough for them to save my life. Because the minute I say it's 317, I have to tell them where I'm located, what's going on. And if I don't, they go, "Chantel, be quiet. I can't, I'm doing something." They don't care. Right. But just me grabbing that had him drop the knife. And I didn't realize, I didn't know about the femoral artery and other important stuff going on with the guy in front. I thought, oh, this is my chance to get out. Well, that fear, it was as if something moved in my body, kind of like Claire was saying, it rushed out. It was as if my body was being pumped full of blood. I became very strong, opened the car door. The entire length of the street, I ran down on all fours like a jaguar. I was so strong and so pumped and running fast on all fours. They did not get my money, but they drove off in my cab. But that fear that swelled within me, my amygdala, that part of my brain that detects danger, I was in danger, when activated by something stressful or scary, my perception of fear instigated something to happen. That something to happen is a response that I'm going to say in brief and we'll go into later and ultimately do a self-care technique on. So that amygdala instigated a part of my brain called the hypothalamus. Hypo, because it's below my thalamus, right? It's a structure in the brain. That hypothalamus released something called CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. Corticotropin releasing hormone, CRH. That told my pituitary, another gland in the brain, to release ACTH, ACTH. That is adrenocorticotropic hormone. That then is sent, right? These chemicals are then, it's like it's like someone saying, hey, go to this, like playing telephone. Hey, go do this thing. And then the person grabs it, goes, okay. And then, or throwing a ball to somebody, right? We're like, or what is that, relay? It's like the relay is being passed again and again via these chemical or neuronal responses. So that amygdala is like, you're in danger. Okay, hypothalamus, start the business. And the hypothalamus is like, got it. I'm going to release CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. I'm going to tell that pituitary to release the chemical it needs to release, which is ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropic hormone. And that tells my adrenals to release cortisol into my bloodstream and go, go, go. You fight, you flight, you do whatever you need to do to get out of danger. Those are hormones. Those are chemicals that are enabling my eyes to dilate, right? Let more light in so I can see more clearly. My muscles to get big, my blood to pump. I become strong. The mother lifts the car off the child, right? This is the HPA axis, hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis. We're going to do a self-care tool, client care tool on it later. And that action of hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, releasing ultimately all that cortisol is good. It gets us out of danger. It becomes problematic when it's all that's happening. And we tend to and can be walking around in states where we're pumping too much. We're in states of fear, even though we're not in danger. Yeah. So the area of the brain that's responsible for fear detection is the amygdala. The amygdala, or amygdalae, because it's actually a paired structure, it's composed, and I love this because I'm going to show you a map in a little bit. Maps are so like, this is the pituitary, this is the amygdala, and we're like, they are structures, but it's really neurons and cells. I had a teacher, I teach about trauma and addiction, and one of my teachers for trauma talks about how this structure is really, this is just like when we look at a map, it's just like an indication of where things are, right? So the amygdala is composed. Ooh, somebody's coming on. Admit. It's composed of neurons and glial cells. So if you don't know what that is, pretty simple. Neurons are nerve cells. They allow for transmission of those messages, right? Produce this, do that, throw the ball, right? So it's just nerve cells that are allowing for those messages to be sent to enable action. The glial cells are cells that help those neurons function properly. Like they're the ones that are like cleaning out the dead neurons. They are making it so that healthy transmission takes place, that communication is working properly. right? So that's the essence of that area of the body with the amygdala, the paired structures that are near also the hippocampus. And like I said, I'll show you my reflexology map of the brain where these are roughly in our big toes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Do. Okay. So you got it. I told you a story. That was my story of fear and what happened to me and how I was able to take action. And I told you a little bit about the amygdala. Now, do stories now come to your mind of something that you've experienced where strength came in, or maybe even like a freezing action came in that you wish to share aloud? And just for everyone who came in late, this is being recorded. So you could keep it really general and maybe not use names because we're sharing this with other people too, or any insights or ideas or questions. And just unmute yourself or type it into the chat. And it's good to see all your faces. I'm in speaker mode, but I could look above and see you. So I'm glad you're all here. So anything that comes to mind when you've experienced fear and you noticed a change in your body, and all those, the things we were saying earlier, the sweating, the increase, any of that.
I'll share.
Okay.
And I mean, this might not be very familiar to a lot of people, but I have dissociative identity disorder, and I experience not regression. I experience kind of like my trauma, like I have PTSD, complex PTSD. Everyone who's dissociative identity disorder has that, but I experience things somatically. I experience my memory somatically. I don't remember like the memories, like you're going back and remembering all those details of your course. To develop DID, it happens when you're very young, before your identity is fully formed. And I think that's interesting because people think that it's multiple like personalities, but it's actually a personality that never formed fully. So I believe that my ability to dissociate, it saved my life. And as I process some of these memories, I feel like that I could have, when I did fracture and when I did create a personality almost to take over in a moment where I felt it was the end, whether I was being, well, I don't want to traumatize anybody, but like drowned or suffocated or like that. It gave me the ability to have that strength that I needed. So in my, I can see it as a curse or I can see it as a blessing. And it was my body's and brain's way of surviving. Where you survived that experience by your body reacting in that certain way. My body just learned to do it in a different way because I was so young. So anyway, I just thought I would share that. And I do a lot of self-work, a lot of self-trauma work, because I just have to do it in the moment. Like when I feel something, I do tap. So that's why I do enjoy your information, because the reflexology and different avenues of being able to help yourself and help others.
So great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Really, really good. This is why conversation for me, sharing our experiences is so vital, I think, for all of our healing. The opening our mouths and sharing, and then the listening. So that's awesome. Thank you very much, Heather. Anyone else want to share what has brought up in them, and what maybe took hold, right? Okay, and we can move on. And you have that as your inquiry anyway. Okay, So I'd like to share a website with you. It's called the Atlas of Emotions. Has anybody ever heard of that? Doot, doot, doot. Okay, I'm going to share this. It's a very visual. When I teach my classes on trauma and addiction, well, that's the class I teach most right now. But I also teach classes on the brain and pain, and also on emotions and emotional balancing. And a big part of all of this work is looking at our triggers. And thank you for using that word. I don't want to traumatize you or re-traumatize you. For me, it's not a matter of needing to go back. It's a matter of looking at where we are now, because those things are still present. They're just manifesting differently. So we will talk about our triggers. Those triggers will lead to survival mechanisms. That means something can happen today that has nothing to do with my past experience, that will lead me to a survival mechanism, that will lead me to want to fight. Someone just said a certain little thing and I want to fight him. I'm angry, I'm pissed, I want to fight. It's this little tiny thing that someone said, but it's related to an old trigger. What I pay attention to, so as not to traumatize myself, is the trigger now. My trigger is I'm mad when people are late. My trigger is I don't like to be interrupted. My trigger is whatever. You know your triggers. And if you don't know them, I encourage you to write them down. It's much more fun than going back into our history, looking at where I am now. What are those triggers? The way someone chews their food with their mouth open, right? This is a much more, for me, funny, and also it's a direct route into the uneasiness that is settled within my body today, based on past stuff, past trauma. So I look at my triggers. I look at the survival mechanism that might manifest. I look at the emotions that are present. I'm aware of where they're housed in my body. I'm aware too of the actions that unfold. What do I tend to do? Right? Do I tend to get mad and yell? Right? Do I tend to run away and stop off? I can't talk to you right now and leave. Right? So we get to know ourselves. And in so doing, maybe I get to learn how to slow down. In reflexology, we have a great phrase. We interrupt a stress response. When I'm applying pressure to the different reflexology points and areas on your feet, for instance, within the reflexology map, I have an opportunity to interrupt the stress response. So I like to think of this work as I'm contemplating my life, as I'm learning to know myself, as I'm having the courage to share something aloud, as I'm having the kindness in my heart to listen fully. All of that enables me to slow down and to interrupt my habitual emotional, knee-jerk, reactive responses. And ultimately now I have the opportunity to do it differently. And maybe I can move from a place of, oh my God, it's a snake, to, oh gosh, that's a hose, right? I walk around with, oh my God, that's a snake, because of some past stuff. I've done enough work to look at it long enough to be like, okay, is that a hose? Oh my God, it's a hose, it's a hose, it's a hose. It still takes me work, right? I have a lot of work to do. And it's become more fun the more I look at the triggers. And if you have any questions about that, I can expound. We're going to look at this website. It's the one I was just telling you about, which is called the Atlas of Emotions. And I'm going to share my screen. Let's pull it up first. Atlas of Emotions. And I'm just going to show you. I think this is done in such a visual way. I could tell you all day long, but I think the way that it shows it is really clean and clear. All right, so here we go. Welcome to the Atlas of Emotions, supported by the Dalai Lama. I'm going to move this little bar over. Okay. So our emotions unfold on a timeline, right? We are in so-called time and space. It begins with a trigger that initiates an emotional experience and ultimately results in a response. So we pulled up fear. A friend gets angry with you. You feel fear because you imagine them leaving. This might even get you to leave, right? Within this website, just because I love it so much, and I'll share it in our group. You can move through. It's very interactive. A friend gets angry with you. You feel anger, so you argue. It may seem really basic, these words you're seeing across the screen, but when I can look at myself and really just evaluate the simple thing that's happening, the emotion that's arising, where it is in my body and how I react, oh my gosh, just that knowledge alone. And I really encourage people to write things down. There was a gentleman named Pennebaker. I've spoken about him before. He did a study at Stanford about writing, really writing. It was a controlled study. There was one group that really wrote stuff that no one was ever going to read, and they got it out. They were really expressive, and they got it out of their bodies and their systems, and they put it pen to page. And then there was another group that just wrote about like their daily experience. What he found, because they tested the levels of the blood pressure, is the blood pressure dropped and or normalized. And it remained that way after really expressing themselves by writing it down up to, I think it was 3 to 4 weeks later. It remained lowered and or normalized. So writing is a valuable tool. Speaking is a valuable tool. Taking a breath and listening, valuable tool, right? They're tools in the tool bag that help us when we're holding on to this kind of stuff. So just so you know, within this website, you can go down your rabbit hole and go further into it. This is a last example. A friend gets angry with you, you feel sadness, and that leads to feeling ashamed. So if we go back to fear, which is our journey today, experience. So these are all the ones that it brings up. We're going to talk about, we're looking at fear today. So I'm going to go ahead and click fear. So these are the different levels of fear. And Heather, you brought this up. It's like there's like something might happen where somebody, maybe the muscles are engaged and they flee, right? Or somebody might feel just a little trepidation or nervousness or anxiety, right? But then there are other experiences within and without that lead to panic, terror, horror, right? And so there is a scale of fear, right? And I want to we hold it all. We're able to look at it all, right? There are things that we are fearful of that are not life-threatening, and there are things that we're fearful of that are. Fear contains both anxiety and terror. The intensity of these states varies. We can feel mild or strong anxiety, but we can only feel intense terror. All states of fear are triggered by feeling a threat or harm. Okay. And then this talks about what it might lead to. Intense worry, withdrawal, screaming, yelling, ruminating, intense ruminations, sticking with that rumination, getting no sleep, etc., freezing, the inability to move, avoidance, etc. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. I love that website. Was that helpful, that visual? Yeah, I'll put it, like I said, I'll put it in our link below too. So it's important. It was somebody just wrote something. Oh yeah. Good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So it's important for me to understand how I'm wired. And you noticed I do this in all my classes. I try to stay away from the we or the you, because I don't know you. And I don't even know we, right? But I know I can learn to know I. So I'm going to learn to know how I'm wired. And I don't need to look back. I don't need to be re-traumatized. I know what that feels like. Instead, I can stay in my present and I can evaluate where I am now. When am I fearful now? What causes me to be fearful now? What situations come up that make me fearful now? And when fearful of something, what occurs, right? Like we just saw, do I freeze? Do I get embarrassed? Do I feel less than? Is there judgment? Am I scared of the dark? It doesn't have to be why. I don't have to know why to begin my healing process, right? You don't need to know your diagnosis to begin the cure. You acknowledge where you are now and you work with that state, period. Where it's in your body. I'm feeling restless. That happened this morning. My tummy felt weird. I had just eaten and I felt starving. I was like, am I nervous about this class? No, I'm excited about this class. Something's going on with my stomach. I don't need to know why. All I need to know is for some reason I need to lie down. And I lie down and my kitty came over and I just lied there and I honored where I was. There was a feeling going on within me. I didn't need to know why, but I needed to honor it. So this also for me is the essence of self-care, is being aware of that tiny little feeling. You're tired, you're scared, whatever it is, fill in the blank. And then you take an action and do something about it and you honor yourself, right? I remember when I was little, very, very little, I had a dream. During the day, we had a barbecue. It was a barbecue in the backyard. And at night, I had a dream that the hot dogs turned into like warriors and they had all these big forks and they were under my bed. I was so young, I was still in it like a crib-like situation. And they were chanting, "We're gonna eat you. We're gonna eat you." It was one of my first nightmares I remember. These hot dogs saying, "We're going to eat you." And that was real for me. I was in full terror. I could not sleep, right? Not good for my little nervous system. Sleep is vital. The ability to relax, the ability to have peace of mind, to exhale, it's important. But that little person, that little me, was terrified by what I thought was a real scenario unfolding. So I will also be aware of my ability to identify that the fear has certain physiological changes that occur. So that means like this morning when my tummy was doing that funny thing, I felt a little nauseous and hungry. So bizarre because I just finished eating. That was a change. My body was talking to me. And the best thing that I could do was to lie down, not sleep, just lie down and put my hand on my tummy. So, what are some changes you experience? We talked about this a little bit earlier. We already mentioned, like, the nauseousness and the dizziness, eyes dilating, the trembling, the cold, right? This sort of thing. What are some things that you believe before we move into self care that you can do to honor feelings coming up within you, like fear, that helps calm you, that helps nurture you? What are some things you do or some ideas you have?
I can offer something. As we've proceeded here, one of the things that realized, I mean, I've known that, but what has come to mind is when I'm confronted by somebody, and I've had that happen with students. They confront you with, they challenge me, but I see it and feel it as a confrontation. And my best response when that happens is sometimes not to respond or just suggest that we talk about it later. I would, I'm going to, two things. I would either be angry and respond in a negative way, or I will just not even have the words. I need the proper words. And so to deflate it with, we can talk about this later, would be my approach.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you identified the two things, right? This is what's happening, right? Like when somebody does this, it brings up this sensation in me. If I were to do the knee-jerk reaction, I would either do X or Y or Z. But what I can do, what I heard you say was I pause and or say, we'll talk about it later. That arc is, thank you so much, because you just took us through the arc of identification and resolve. It's so cool. And pause is the best thing ever. Pause, when I just learned about pause recently, kind of. I'm like, oh, I don't have to respond. I don't have to respond to this email today. Thank you so much, Claire. That was really great. Thank you. A couple people wrote deep breathing or meditating. Yes. I want to bring up one thing about that. Breath, pause, notice where it is in the body. Also reframe. What a great word, reframe. And prayer. Yes, prayer. And you don't have to be religious to pray. There's different ways that we can pray. I want to offer something about deep breathing, and this is one of my tools. It's like, when someone says, just breathe, because you're like so activated and panicky, and you're like, screw you, I can't breathe, right? If I'm in panic, if I'm in anxiety, if I'm in fear, the last thing I can do is breathe. So this is a tricky tool. I've gotten around it in a way that I don't know. I've never had to do it in front of other people, but I can do it alone. And I don't know if I've done it in any of our classes yet. I'll do it with you now. If I am in a very charged place, very activated, very sympathetic nervous system, I can't get my breath, right? We know, or you may know, that sympathetic nervous system is all about the inhale. Parasympathetic is all about the exhale. So it's not just about breathing, it's about exhaling. But if I'm in a panic state, I can't actually exhale. So if you tell me to just breathe, that's my breath, right? And then you tell me to try to do that for like a half hour. It's hysterical. There's nothing's going to change. Thank you very much. Screw you. I can't breathe. So this is what I've done, or what I've discovered. What I do is I honor exactly where I am, and I do the breath from that place. So I call it cultivating the exhale. What it is, and people do fire breath and this kind of thing. It's not that. It's not yogic, but you're pushing, honoring where you are and pushing. It's almost like you're forcing yourself into a parasympathetic state. However crazy that sounds, you honor where you are all along the way so that when you get there, you do end up in a parasympathetic state. So I'm going to kind of mimic where you might be. So if I'm really up here and I want to breathe, I'm going to try to exhale through my nose, honoring this state that I'm in. So I'm going to go. So I'm exhale, exhale, exhale. Now, I got to tell you, every time I use that as an example, I get teary. Like every single, even though I'm not even emotional right now, even though I'm not in a state of panic, I encourage you to try this when you're not charged or activated. It's almost like you exhaust yourself, like a baby just going, fall asleep. That exhale, the more I pushed it down, you could hear it and see it, right? It was like I slowed and suddenly I dropped into and Claire yawns. Suddenly I hear yawning again. Like I dropped in. I was able to drop in. And it's not because I was breathing, and we're going to do a mudra today. It's not because of any of that. It's because I honored where I was, and I helped facilitate getting to where I needed to be, if that makes sense. Makes sense? Yeah. All right, really good. Anything else before we go into self-care? We'll end with self-care today. Oh, I told you I'd show you the thing. I got to show you the slide, right? I told you I'd show you. I can't not show you the slide if I said I was going to show you the slide. So where is that slide? It's in teaching. Okay, so where is this? I should have known we were gonna do this today. Should have known. Dun, dun, dun. Let's do teaching. Okay. We're in the room. We're almost there. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Okay. I have found it. I'm arranging it so it fills my screen. All right. I'm not going to do all the things to make it perfect, but I just want you to see it. Okay. Okay. Um, all right, here we go. So this is something I use actually in a few of my classes. These are the survival adaptations. So remember I was talking about mobilizing reactions and immobilizing reactions. One of the best things we could do is mobilize. Something fearful is happening. One of the best things we could do is fight or run or cry out for help. Problem is, if we're little, like this cute little kitty, and this person is really big, our chances of fighting or running away or crying loudly are diminished, are lessened. So more often than not, we're going to do an immobilizing reaction. That immobilizing reaction might be to freeze, to be in extreme terror, to fright, to flag. Flag is another word for dissociation, right? It's just kind of coming outside ourselves. It saves our lives. Absolutely. Fainting, flopping. I always kind of think of flopping like it's like faint, right? You see this in a deer, right? They just completely faint. A flop, I consider more emotional almost. It's like if you're in an argument with someone and you're like kind of leaning, you're like, please stop. Oh my God, it's so exhausting. Stop you yelling at me. It's like this flopping action that is mimics the faint, but it's like, but in this example, houses words as well. And then defensive adaptive responses are fawning, flirting, friending. Um, in other classes, I've spoken, I give examples of these. They also can save our lives. They only become problematic when we use them, you know, to feel better about ourselves, right? When the flirting becomes something we do on the regular, for instance. Someone I know was in a situation where somebody came up to them and pulled a gun on them in front of their house and said something. And this person that I know looked at them and said, "Oh, hey, man, how you doing?" They friended, not because their mind was so sharp. It's because the adrenaline pumped within them. And suddenly this idea sprung to mind. And that intuition led to, "Hey, man, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Man, it's good to see you." Totally friended this person they've never seen before, who happened, she believes, to be on a lot of drugs, who not in a state of not in a healthy state, and her life was in danger. She friended him so hard that he got so confused, he literally just walked away. This can save our lives. Yeah, I'll stop there. I have other stories to share about this, but I'll hold those for longer classes. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. So that gives you some example of those F's, the F's. And we also, now I'm going to have to add fold. I'm going to put flop slash fold, right? Because it's similar. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, let's end with our self-care tools and then we'll be released into our day. I like to honor just keeping it under an hour. All right, so we begin with universal position. So those of you who know Reiki, universal position is placing one hand, the palm of our hand, over our heart and the other palm on our solar plexus. And all we do there is hold. It could, even if you don't mean it, even if you're not in a relaxing state of mind, just place the palm on the heart, other palm on the solar plexus. And you could even stay as charged as you want. If you have the courage and you can close your eyes, good. If you don't want to close your eyes, just lower your gaze, right? Closing eyes isn't always an option, especially if we're charged and fearful. We don't feel safe to close our eyes. Universal position. I also want you to know this palm that's over your heart, there's layers. We know this about our body, right? Well, certainly there's auric layers, but let's just say skin, right? Musculature, cells. If I'm here, I'm also at the level of the thymus. I'm at the level, right? The thymus is there. And then underneath there, I got a sternum, right? In a rib cage. So my palm is on my skin, musculature, thymus, sternum, heart. It has layers to move through. And my palm, and I can even warm my palms. My right hand, I like my right hand on my heart, and my left on my solar plexus. My solar plexus is at the base of that sternum. I place it here. Some people go lower in chakra, certain chakra theory. You might place it lower. For me, it's higher. That's where it is for me. So you could just close your eyes, lower your gaze, and just hold that for a moment and breathe. And if you want, you could put a little smile on your face, even if you don't mean it. So we're gently placing our body in a moment of calm and safety. So that's universal position. Another thing you could do is the Gyan mudra. I like to make my mudras move. Movement really helps me. Someone brought up earlier somatic experiencing, this idea of having my body move through space. Gyan mudra is this one we see all the time. Those of you who are practitioners, reflexologists, people, right? You'll see our clients, they'll do this. No, and they're there and they're ready, and we're doing the reflexology, and they're like this. They're doing the Gyan mudra, and it's just bringing the tips of the first and second digits together. There are different ways where maybe one is up, one is down, one is out, one is down, one is up, that mean different things. For our purposes today, we want to cultivate the breath. So I actually would use this mudra not just as a position. I want to move. I don't want to just hold it, because if I'm holding and I'm fearful and I'm in panic, I might be clenching my jaw. I might be holding my breath. So I want to move my body. So I take the Gyan mudra and I inhale with the hands coming up. And when I exhale, I bring it down. And when I bring it down, I actually like to open up my palms and push down gently. And I exhale. And I inhale with the Gyan mudra, palms to the ceiling, and I exhale down. But you could breathe through your nose or your mouth. It doesn't matter. And as I'm doing it, I'm really aware that my jaw is loose. I'm aware that my neck is free. I'm in my pelvis. I'm on my sits bones. My feet are on the floor. I'm in my back body. I'm in my back body, my spine. And last time, inhale and exhale. And with any self-care technique like that one, I'll keep my eyes closed. My hands are on my lap. And I just wait and sit. So I finish something and I just do nothing after. Okay. And then we're going to end with reflexology. I'm just seeing if there's any. Okay, good. I'm going to bring up the a map. Because I had that slide show up. I'll use that. I'll take it from there. All right, so we're going to share the screen. All right. So this is my brain map. Some of you know this map. You know what we could do? I'll make it prettier by doing a slideshow. How's that? Play from current slide. All right, so we're going to look at this map. Now, remember what I said. These are indications of where neuronal structures are and glands are generally. I believe in intention. So I like the idea of meeting a point and saying, I'm on the pituitary gland, right? So that intention helps, but also just know there's some flexibility in all of our maps. Also, our fingers are so big. If you're on the pituitary reflexology area, you probably are, because your finger's so big. If it's like mine, that it's over that area. For the HPA axis, what you're going to do is you're going, so you see this is pituitary, come up through here. It's right about there. If I was looking, this is a toe. So this is for client care. I also have one, you guys probably know this. I have one on the Redbubble page for the thumb or the hand. And it's right smack in the middle where the center of the swirl is and the dot. That's pituitary, right smack in the center. It's at the center because it's the master gland and it's at the center of itself, right? So it's right in the center. Now, if I rock up, everybody knows I like to rock up. I hold the back side. So it's my finger that is rocking up into the hypothalamus, right above there. I put it like a heart. It rocks up into the hypothalamus. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share because I'm going to show you with my hands. So stop share. And then I also have to end show. End show. All right, so to do this, I like to think of my figure 8. So I'm going to hold, so this is my right hand. I'm going to be pressing with my right index finger. This is my left hand, my left hand's receiving. I'm going to put my thumb on my nail, and I'm going to use my right pointer finger at the center of that swirl where the dot is. I'm going to hold here, and I'm going to rock up. And I actually like to just rock up 5 times, 2, 3, 4, 5. I then, with my other index finger, I'm going to create like a circle 8 and go to my adrenal gland on the right hand, and I press in and I relax and hold for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I go to my other hand, pituitary and hypothalamus. I rock up. I'm technically going hypothalamus, pituitary, hypothalamus, pituitary. Can you see that? Hypothalamus, pituitary, hypothalamus, pituitary. I'm getting other structures too. I'm rocking so high, I'm actually getting the thalamus too, that signaling center that receives those messages, right? So I'm getting other structures too. And I count to 5. Counting helps. Then with my other finger, I go to the adrenal on the other side of my body. I press in and I relax that hand as much as I can. And I hold for 1, 3, 4, 5. Now I can continue to do this action, right? This like figure 8, or I could actually do all the fingers of rocking and adrenal, rocking, adrenal, rocking. I'm on the middle finger, adrenal, other middle finger, rocking, adrenal, 4th finger. So and the reason why I like to do this, I'm a very visual person. When I envision that HPA axis, I'm envisioning the amygdala getting charged, instigating hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, relax. Hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, relax. It's a figure 8 in my body. Right. And that figure 8 also is like, that's what I want to calm down. Less epinephrine, less cortisol. You are safe. It's a hose. It's a hose. It's a hose. Right. So let's just do it together one time and then we'll close for the day. So we rock up 1, 2, adrenal on the other side. Really, really relax. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. And very easily and curiously go to the other finger. 1. Breathing. The other adrenal. With great like curiosity and compassion, right? We're just really simply with our tissue. I think of it like a little child cries and we pick it up. In reflexology, we give attention by touch and by being curious about the tissue as practitioners too, right? I want to be very curious about and listen to that tissue. Are there any questions, ideas, insights before we close? Do you feel like you know a little more that you could take with you into your day, in your life? Yeah. All right. I'm have a really good day, night, afternoon, etc. I'll put this on the page, and just much love. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Chantel.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Donna. Bye,
Bye,
Terry.
Ann.
Randy. Bye, everybody.